We're getting there. All right. We're going to do one last little video ad thing, and then we're going to have Caleb come on board here. So let's see if we can do this. Okay. We're working. Things are going.
Hey there, Laracon. My name is Chris Tankersley, and I'm the PHP developer advocate at Vonage, formerly known as Nexmo. I'm going to run you through how quickly and easily you can get up and running with our API in under 2 minutes using Laravel. Let's get started. First, we start off by just installing our Nexmo Laravel package, just like any other PHP package. Then we're just going to go ahead and update our vendors in Laravel. Next, we're going to go ahead and set up our Nexmo API secret and key, which we'll use for authentication. Then we'll go ahead and we're going to make a brand new command we're going to run from the command line. And let's go ahead and set up that command. So we're going to make a new command called nexmo:SMS. We're going to give it a to, a from, and a message that we're going to send. And let's go ahead and throw in some code. So we have a Nexmo facade coming in from Nexmo Laravel. We have we can call that with our SMS client and say send new SMS. We'll grab the to argument, and we'll grab the from argument, and we will grab the message argument. That's all we need to send it, and then we'll go ahead and return to the user that, hey, this all worked. And now for the magic. Let's go ahead and run that command. So we'll do PHP artisan nexmo:SMS. Fill in your telephone number you used to register with Vonage. Fill in your Vonage number you have in your dashboard. And let's go ahead and give it a little message. And it should show up on your telephone. It's that easy. If you want to sign up today, go ahead and go to dashboard.nexmo.com/signup. Go ahead and fill that out. And as a special benefit for being at Laracon, we have a coupon code on Lara10. You can go to dashboard.nexmo.com/coupons and fill that out. That'll give you some extra credit.
Okay. Get out of there. Thank you to Vonage for sponsoring. I thought that was actually really cool, and they really made that really concise, which was great. Thanks a lot again to Vonage, Nexmo. I'm always a big supporter of Laracon, and really appreciate it. Okay. Caleb, let's bring him on.
Hello, hello, hello. Testing.
There we go. We got him.
All right.
Look at that background. You're like got the whole theme going.
I know. This is, somebody said that. They're like, "Is this for Laracon, the aquatic?" And I'll say yes, but it.
Yes, you should. It's like
exactly.
It matches the homepage exactly.
I drew it myself.
I wish I had one of those. Did you really?
No.
That would have been awesome if you did. All right. Well, great, man. Take it away. Everybody's super pumped for your talk, so let's do it.
Let's do it. Thanks, Ian.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. It is go time, folks. Hello. Usually this is the part where I look out into the audience and just kind of take it all in. And right now what I'm taking in is not that, but I'm going to absorb your virtual energy here. So I'm Caleb, and blah, 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 Porzio, and no plans to merge, and make VS Code awesome, and Livewire and Alpine, and that's that. Okay, so it's been 6 months since I launched Livewire version 1. We tagged version 1 on the last Laracon Online stage, which was really awesome. The reception has been really great. And at the time, I got to start my timer so that I don't go over. Time's so tight here. At the time, I gave out a bunch of metrics that I thought were pretty impressive, but they become more impressive. So I'm going to flash the few that have updated significantly. So at the time, there were 30,000 Composer installs, which I thought was a big deal. There's 290,000 Composer installs now, which is pretty cool. There was 1.9 thousand GitHub stars. Now there's 5.3 thousand GitHub stars. And, oh man, you missed it. there were 90 GitHub sponsors, and now there's 646 GitHub sponsors, people paying me to do this work on Livewire and Alpine. And it is literally my dream come true. So thank you, everybody, so much. I do this all full time now, which is great. So let's talk Livewire V2. That's what this is about. This is the part where I ask if you're ready, and you all go, oh, yes, absolutely. So I'm envisioning that. Okay. So Livewire V2. Let's do a quick Livewire 101. So lest we never forget how easy it is to install Livewire, this will never get old to me. If you want to try out Livewire, composer, require, Livewire, and hit enter, and you're basically done. Then you hop inside your layouts file, and you pop in this @ Livewire scripts, which gives you all of Livewire's JavaScript and @ Livewire styles, and then you are good to go with Livewire. And again, that's it. You're totally done. It's 0 config. You can then use @ Livewire and just pop in any component anywhere you want instead of like a blade include, and it'll just work. So know that. It's super easy to get started. But I want to show you a way of using it that's a little bit more than just sprinkling in Livewire here and there. So this is the first kind of new thing in V2, is this new syntax. So let's register a route. We're going to put it at the root endpoint, and we're going to create a new component, artisan make Livewire, and hello Laracon. Okay. So we have this new component. Now check this out. Livewire components can now basically be referred to as if they were controllers. So anywhere you would throw a controller, you can just throw a Livewire component. So we're going to throw hello Laracon inside of here. Okay, and it's automatically going to use your layouts.app file that ships. It's like bootstrapped with Jetstream, and it's kind of a common pattern. You can easily configure it yourself, but if you have that slot that I showed you, now if you refresh your page, we are on a page that has a Livewire component. So let's actually open up this component, put something in there so you can see that I'm not lying to you. Hello Laracon blade file. Okay. So this is Livewire 101, so we establish a common foundation. This is a Livewire component. It looks very similar to a blade component, except it extends Livewire component. It still has a render method that returns blade. You can even return those blade strings if you want. And then we have some blade that is ref. It's a simple blade file. There's nothing actually more than just blade there. So Livewire tracks state kind of like a view component with public properties. So let's create a piece of state called foo, set it to bar, and then inside of this blade file, we are going to echo out foo. Here comes the magic, refresh, and there is bar. Not actually magic because this isn't anything you can't do with a normal blade component. So let's make it reactive. So if we have input type text, wire : model, kind of like V model in Vue, foo, this is the first magical Livewire thing. We can mess with bar, and it will actually change and react live. Now, how did that work? Livewire has JavaScript on the front end. It's kind of got a front end framework portion, and it's going to listen for interactions. And when they happen, it's going to send a network request to the server, re-render that blade view, get the HTML back, and then intelligently swap the HTML into the page using morph DOM. It's kind of an intelligent DOM diffing thing. All right, so the other thing, you can sync data with two-way binding. You can also listen for events like click or key down or whatever you want and call methods, or I call them actions. So let's create a change method, and inside of change, we are going to change foo. So foo equals Baz now, okay? And I didn't name the button, blah, blah, blah. Perfect name, okay. So we have bar, we mess with bar, okay? Now we hit this ridiculous button name, and bam, it switched to Baz. So those are really the two main mechanics behind Livewire. If you understand that, you understand the basis. This is the Livewire 101. And to reiterate my passion for this project, it all uses backend templating, blade templating, which means you get to use Laravel inside your templates, which means there's no build step or bundle step ever. I never even deal with that anymore. I forgot that's still a thing that people do. I don't hit save and wait for a bundle, which is really nice. You can do a lot more interesting things with testing because you're actually rendering the template on the server. So you can do like testing on the server, whatever. But ultimately, here's the thing I wanna first make this point with Livewire V2 and adding this route get. I now think of features in full stack components rather than componentry being restricted to the front end with something like Vue. Now I have these full stack components. So I literally have not written a Laravel controller in over a year because I just passed these Livewire components in. And if you need more functionality, you add another method and you call it. You don't have to worry about making your routes restful and making your controller names perfectly restful and things like that. It's just sort of a blurring of the lines in a component-based way. Okay, so let's do something with v2 here. All right. So I have a route called sponsor, and here we're referencing the show sponsors component. Okay, and let's load this up in the browser. Okay, and here we have kind of a data table thing. It's a list of all my sponsor friends, Vegas Taylor being the closest of my sponsor friends. And then we got Decole, Hempbra, Dan, some others, and some inactive sponsors like Mitchie with the overalls. So this is a data table component. Let's take a look at the back end and give you an idea. By the way, this is actually works and is reactive, so we can search, we can sort by active. Okay, now let's take a look at the code behind this and get ourselves acquainted with it. Okay, so here's the PHP portion. We have two public properties that we're tracking with state with wire model. We have search and active. You saw those fields. And here we have search. We're wire modeling search, and we're wire modeling active. Now, quick note, I'm going to be using the crap out of Blade components because they're so fantastic. Jeffrey covered them and did a wonderful job. They're absolutely a pleasure to work with. Yeah, they're totally awesome. And you don't have to stare at my heaping mess of div soup and tailwind and whatnot. Okay, so we have that data binding, and then we have this render method where we return this blade view on the right, but we pass it data just like you were doing inside a normal controller. We have sponsors, and then we go and use Eloquent and get those sponsors. Okay, so when search changes, the whole thing does that whole render cycle like we saw before. So one quick little thing that I want to show you that's new in Livewire is let's make this export button alive. So file downloads, they now exist in Livewire. I'll show you. If we have an export method, and here we return some sort of download, whatever kind of download, any kind of Laravel download you use, storage download or response download or stream download, this works with it. So I'm just streaming the download and echoing out all my sponsor data, okay? So I refreshed the page out of a force of habit. I didn't even have to refresh the page. It would still work. So let's click export right here. And there we go. It's just what you'd think. It's like totally lackluster. You just return a download. And now we have, oh, you're seeing all my processes because my fan was going. Here's that CSV downloaded. And there we go. We have a CSV of those sponsors. So that's downloads. Okay. One thing I want to show you that's new in V2 is smarter payload stuff. So I showed you that network requests are kind of the core of Livewire. So if we search in here, we type a V, we did a search, it sent the network request, re-rendered the template, and came back. And so it's at 3.4 kilobytes. That's the size of that payload. Now check this out. If I type E, it's going to still do a network request, but it's not actually returning any different results. The HTML is the exact same. And so because it's the exact same and we don't need to actually send it over the wire, we don't. So Livewire, this request is like less than half the size of the previous request because now we're not sending the HTML when we don't need to. And in fact, we don't send anything we don't need to anymore in Livewire. We've gotten really kind of strict, creative with the payloads in Livewire, which is pretty cool. Okay, so here's one that I think is awesome. In a data table component like this, where you have some search and an active toggle or whatever, sorting and pagination, you usually want the data reflected in your query string in the URL bar so that the user can bookmark the page and go back and forth and do whatever. And doing this manually is kind of annoying, whatever. Livewire makes this great. Let me show you. Livewire V2 now has a protected property, protected property called query string. And we're going to set that equal to, and here you can pass in any public properties you want. So we could say search, we could say active, we could track both of them. So we pass in active in a query string. Now I refresh, watch the magic. There we go. The query string now has active equals true inside the query string. And if we change active, it then is reflected inside the query string automatically. And if we change the query string, it then is reflected in the component. So it's kind of two-way bound. And even more than that, if we're toggling on and off, it uses push state in a way that kind of like inertia uses push state, where you're storing data in the push state and there's fanciness. It's the same thing. When I hit the back button, it's not an actual browser back. It's a push state fancy back that just changes the piece of data in the Livewire component as if you clicked that button. So when I'm hitting the back and forward button, you're actually seeing the transition on the toggle, which is pretty cool. So I'm pretty pumped about that. There's a lot of cool stuff there. And yeah, but we need to move on. So let's talk about forms in Livewire. So Vegas Taylor, if we click on Vegas Taylor, we'll go and we'll edit Vegas Taylor. Here is the query string right here, the URL. /sponsor/1, presumably the ID, and then edit. And then we have this page. We have Vegas Taylor's name, and we have some tags of things that he likes, Lambos, Vegas, and vibes, and whatnot. And let's take a look at this in the PHP side and get ourselves acquainted with this component. Okie dokie. All right, and here we have a normal Laravel route get /sponsor. Then we're using route model binding, normal Laravel stuff, curly brace sponsor /edit, passing in the sponsor form, a Laravel or a Livewire component. And so let's take a look at that. Sponsor form and sponsor form. Okay, so the first thing, here's the mount method. This is the starting point of a Livewire component. It's like the init hook or something. And it runs when the component initializes. And when you pass a component like this into the router with route get, like it's a controller, this becomes what a controller's method would be. So any sort of dependency injection or model binding works here the same it does in a controller. It's totally normal. This is a V1 thing. Nobody's impressed. So we get sponsor, the sponsor model, in through the mount hook. We can set sponsor as a property. So now we're setting sponsor. And now we're setting some data that we need to track because we need to do the model binding, whatever. So we have name and tags. And we see here name and tags. And then we have wire model name and wire model tag. So we're two-way data binding these properties. Then we have this form that we listen for a submit and we call save when the user hits that submit button. We call save. And you'll notice that my X button component has BG purple. And I feel like an idiot if you're watching Adam's talk. It should just say purple, I think now, right? So anyway, we have save, and the save method, we call some validation, and then we actually update the sponsor. So if you have dealt with forms at all in Livewire, this is not new to you. This is how all of your form components look. So the first thing I want to show you, this is a simple form. We're not doing anything fancy. We're not doing real-time validation or anything like that. We have to change the thing, then hit save to then, do anything meaningful, right? So because of that, when we type into these fields, we're actually sending network requests, which is a massive waste because we're not actually doing anything with them. So why are we sending them? So Livewire for a long time has had this .lazy modifier that basically allows you to skip the sending until, this is the same exact way that it works in Vue.js, until you tab out of that field. And that's all well and good, but we can do better. So this is probably the most requested feature in Livewire. And here it is, wiremodel.defer. This is brand new with version 2, wiremodel.defer. And the idea here is this is kind of a smart lazy. Basically, this wire model data, the update will be deferred completely. So check this out. I'm updating things. No network requests are sent. I'm doing lots of interactions here, and nothing is happening with the network until I perform a meaningful action like hit the save button. Then it's going to batch those requests and do the whole thing. So if we take a look at the actual request that got sent, here's this little updates key, and it's batched those updates. So we have sync input tags, we have sync input name, and then we call save. So this is significant because effectively what we're seeing here is the exact same network stress as a normal form tag or even like a Vue SPA form or React or whatever. It's one request when you hit save, which is pretty cool. So this gives you a lot of flexibility over the payload. Cool. So back to the form. We have this validation that we're doing. One little nicety that we added in V2, if you're interested, you can take the validation. So if you have multiple of these methods where you're validating in different areas, you end up repeating this little validation string. And so a question I get often is, wouldn't it be great if you could do something like this, which you can now do in V2. You can, Livewire now respects a rules property, and you can store the validation at the component level, making it kind of a first-class citizen. And then when we go to do validate, you don't have to pass it in. It's actually backwards compatible, so you could still pass it in if you want, and this isn't a breaking change. But you can reuse that if you'd like. And this is also beneficial if you do like real-time updating forms. So if we hook into the updated method, this is a lifecycle hook in Livewire, and run validation on a specific field when that field is updated, we don't have to duplicate our requests now, or our validation rules. We can now type in and change things, and we'll get validation in real time, which is super easy. And this is like 4 lines of code, which is great. Okay, so that's validation. So here's another big one. Here's something that is just kind of meh about the Livewire ergonomics, that if we had a field, this is 2 fields, this isn't bad. In the real world, in the non-demo world, you have like 15 fields or more. And that means you have 15 fields listed out right here. You have 15 fields listed out right here, in that updated hook, right here. So you have like 5 times whatever the amount is, and it's just not ergonomic. So we've explored a different approach. And it actually came from people using or thinking Livewire works a certain way, like newcomers to Livewire. They'll do this thing that actually didn't work in V1 and is kind of broken. But we saw that and we're like, what if we did make it work? And those are the things that I'm most interested in. How can we take the things that people think Livewire should do or the way it should work and get out of the way of Livewire and actually make those things work? So anyway, people thought, all right, so I have sponsor coming in right here, right? And I set it as a property. So I've set it as a property. Why do I need to do any of this business? Can't I just bind to that data? Can't I just say sponsor.name and then bind to that data directly so I don't have to deal with any of this funny business? And then instead of calling update, I could just call save because the model has already changed. And then in my validation, I call sponsor.name. Like, wouldn't it be great if I could do that? So this is actually pretty much what people would try to do and submit issues. And we would say, no, that's not possible because of yada, yada, yada. But it is possible in V2. So check it out. This is going to behave the same way. There's nothing different here. It's going to work exactly how it should. Vegas, Tay, lure. And then we hit save and it totally works. And it actually thought that I should translate that, which is funny. Okay, so that's that. And this is actually huge because now if you have 15 fields, you only have them listed out right here. You don't have them listed out everywhere. And it actually, it's kind of coming full circle. It makes this feel like it makes it feel like this component is just sitting on a server somewhere running while the user is on the browser. And you just have a live model that you can mutate and then save when you need to, which is how it feels. And that's kind of great, I think. And it is totally secure. You can't, like hijack the ID or anything like that. We have a whitelist of fields. Okay, so that's that. The other thing I want to show you with forms that is actually not a new thing. This is a V1 thing, but if you haven't seen it, I just like it so much, I want to show it to you. So file uploads. If you add this little use with file uploads, you can now upload files with Livewire. And it's not as simple as you'd think, or it's not as, I don't know, whatever. I'll just show you. Here we have an input tag, okay? We have a public property called photo. And if we change this type to file and then wire model photo, I just want to stop and tell you that file uploads are done. That is it. They're totally done. That's how you deal with file uploads in Livewire. And you can validate that photo property. You can use real-time validation. You can do all of this without the photo ever even touching your server. If you use S3, it just automatically works with signed URLs. If you use Vapor, it works. There's previews. It's like tons of crazy stuff that I don't have time to show you. But I'll show you it at least a little bit. So after we validate, let's take sponsor and use my nice little store avatar function that I made so that you don't have to see me type that out. Okay, and then we pass in this photo. All right, refresh the page. And now we'll use, I don't know, like pre-Laravel Taylor. And we'll just dig up like an old photo of Taylor here. Oh, I gotta move this file. Oh, I can't click it because Zoom is in the way. Move, Zoom. Okay, yeah, it's just like an old photo I had laying around. Pre-Laravel Taylor, hit save. And there we go. We now have file uploads totally done, totally easy. Yeah, so that's a big pain point that people really wanted solved, and now it's solved, and I think it's, pretty great. All right, so that is that. We need to keep moving. It's time to talk about Alpine, folks. So we're going to return to the counter component. Like Jeffrey said, whoever uses a counter component, but inside of a demo? I don't know, not me, but this is how we demonstrate things, I guess. So here's a counter component. This is a demo near and dear to my heart because like day 2 of working on Livewire, this is the thing that I sent out to the world, a counter component in Livewire. You hit plus and you hit minus and it reacts and it sends a request to do that. And that's nothing surprising to you. So let's open this in the back end and take a look. Counter and then counter blade. Okay. So this is very simple. We have a public property count, we have increment, and we have decrement where we change count. And then the blade is also fairly straightforward. We echo count, and then we listen for clicks, wire, click, increment, and decrement, okay? Very straightforward. One thing I do want to show you is something that, again, exists in V1, but not a lot of people know about it. And I think it's pretty baller. So if you add .prefetch to any click action, so wireclick.prefetch, check this out. So I'm going to make my network really slow. Not that it's not slow already with the zoom thing. So fast 3G, okay? I hit this plus. Look at us. We're waiting around like fools for that request to come back and this number to increment. But, oh, you already saw the magic trick. Let me clear that and refresh with the slow connection that we now have to wait for the refresh for. Okay, so I hit plus, takes forever. With this minus, because I hover my mouse over that button, and Livewire is going to fetch that whole thing in the background and queue it up for us if we need it. If we don't, it won't use it. It'll just throw it away. But if we do need it, we can click and we get a very JavaScripty experience. We hit click and bam, it just works. So it's kind of actually ludicrous that this is possible because Livewire is totally stateless. The requests are stateless. So you can do ridiculous things like this. And I hope to push this further in the future. But I wanted to show you that because I think it's really cool. Okay. So counters are actually, you should not build counters if you ever actually need to build a counter, which you won't. You shouldn't build it in Livewire because why would you do that? It could totally be done with JavaScript much easier, right? And this is where Alpine comes in. I basically built Alpine for this very reason. Was there was this hole in the Livewire plan. It was like Livewire is great, but there's these tiny little interactions that I just want view, but or that I just basically that I just want view. That I don't want to use jQuery because of obvious reasons and and whatever. So I built Alpine that kind of resembles Vue, but is much more lightweight, kind of like jQuery was. And Alpine and Livewire work extremely well together, and that is because of a secret. I, build Alpine, so I can change it however I want and add in little backdoors, and I do, so that Livewire can do fancy things, which we're going to talk about. All right, so this Alpine counter, I didn't even take you through the syntax. X data, and we declare the state, which actually, if you watched Jeffrey's talk, he talked all about Alpine, which was awesome. We declare some count state. We have X text count, so we're binding the value of count to this H1, and then we're listening for a click and decrementing and incrementing, okay? So we refresh. On the left, we have our Livewire counter. So when I hit plus and minus with the Livewire counter, it works, whatever. Now this one, it's super snappy and fast because it's Alpine, which is great. All right, so something that people do, which actually Jeffrey did, he kind of showed how you can echo PHP data into Alpine state, and you can do that. There's a lot of times when people try to do like really advanced things like echo JSON into an Alpine state, and then they want Livewire to update when Alpine updates. They want kind of like both things to update. And it's kind of, I don't know, like if you create a modal in Alpine, this is a common scenario. If you create an Alpine modal that can be toggled with Alpine, and then there's like a Livewire form inside of it. And when the user hits save or whatever, you want to close the Alpine form from Livewire, you have to dispatch an event and listen for it, whatever. When really, wouldn't it be grand if they could share state? So here's the magic trick, and then I'm going to work backwards and show you how it's possible. So there's a new blade directive. This is by the way, this is my favorite thing in V2. Get ready. At entangle count. So what we've done right here is like quantum entanglement, we've told Alpine to entangle this property with Livewire so that when one changes, they both change. Okay, so check it out. Now we refresh. And now if I hit plus on this counter, or minus, I'm all screwed up, both of them change. And if I hit plus on this one, they both change. But the cool thing is if we make our network really slow, I can just deal with JavaScript and Alpine all day, and Livewire is going to sit there and update in the background, which is totally awesome. It's like lazily updating in the background as I'm changing the JavaScript. So we have a really optimistic experience, and then the background will catch up. So even cooler than that, you can add .defer and use the same strategy that WireModel.defer uses. So you can Alpine, fast little JavaScript all day, and then if we hit plus in Blade, it catches up. So we batch those requests just like I showed you before, where now we're updating that backend count to 7 to catch it up. And then we're actually calling increment, which is totally awesome. So that is that. Now let me explain to you a little bit about how this works and show you some other cool things along the way. Okay. So in V2, there is a little bit of a new JavaScript component to Livewire. So you can kind of treat a Livewire component like a puppet now and use this awesome syntax. So check it out. Let's, all right, let component, let me make this big for you. Okay, let component equal livewire.first. So this window.livewire is available when you use Livewire. At Livewire Scripts makes it available. And then you can target specific components on the page, or in our case, we have one component, so I'm just doing .first, okay? And then we get component. And now check out what component is. This to me, oh, this is great. This JavaScript object component is like a JavaScript representation of our Livewire component. So we could call component.count and literally get the count. Now, if I increment count by 1, check this out. Component.count is 1. I can also change count. Component.count ++ is now 2. I can make count equal to 50, and it now equals 50. I can also call methods directly on it. This uses JavaScript proxies, which are awesome. Component.increment, component.decrement, and it totally works. All right, so let me even go further. Let's make a new method called say hi, and we are going to pass in a name, and we'll return hi with the name. Oops, with we're adding a space with name, but we're also going to string to upper in PHP. Okay, what a horribly named method. All right, so we have string to upper. We got that whole thing. I didn't even need to refresh. Why do I keep refreshing? I'm losing the compelling point. Okay, so let's get that component again, equals Livewire first. And now component.say hi, we can call that, and we can pass parameters. So we can say, hi, Caleb. No. Talk to the people. Okay, say hi, Laracon, right? We can do that, but think about it. If we call this method, it has to go back to the server, so it's not going to be able to work instantly. So when things aren't instant, they use promises in JavaScript. So likely this returns a promise, just like Axios does, and it does. But because it does, we can just use async await, because that's a nicer syntax. So what if we said like let result equals await component.say hi, okay? And now result is set to hi Laracon, which is crazy because to me, this is the way we should work with the backend, is just make methods and call them and get the stuff we need. It's so simple and straightforward. There's no routes to register. There's no axios.then.catch to do. It's just totally streamlined, which I love. Okay, bringing it full circle, that component thing, cool. You can just use that and integrate with all sorts of cool third-party libraries and make Livewire like a headless backend controller thing, whatever. But in the real world, we're building these Alpine components inside of our Blade components, which, by the way, like that tags component and the toggle component, those are all just at entangled little Alpine components. So it's super powerful pattern that at least I'm going to be using a lot. Here's the thing. How do we use that in Alpine? I give you a new thing called $wire. So inside Alpine, any Alpine component inside a Livewire component can access this magic property. And I said, because I wrote Alpine, I made this little like backdoor in Alpine where you can register magic properties, which people have already found. I didn't even document, and they're making their own magic properties. But $wire is now, I also wanted to say that this is a vanilla Alpine build. This is not a special Livewire build. This is just Alpine CDN. So just pull it in and use it. $wire is the exact same thing as that component or that object that I just showed you. So you could do $wire.count, and now JavaScript will render that server-side state right here. And one of the cool things about this, you can also count ++, you can do whatever you want. One of the cool things about it is that we can do xshow wire.count is greater than 2 or 1. And then we'll add some transition because Alpine has a really nice transition library, and we'll make the duration a full second because Zoom doesn't show durations shorter than a second. All right, so now if I update the server-side state past 1, we're going to now JavaScript-y transition in from back-end state. And if I go back, it's going to transition out. So this is huge for using JavaScript on top of back-endy stuff that you want to use. And also bringing it full circle, you don't have to use the @entangle. It's just a nicety. The actual syntax, it's just kind of sugar for $wire.entangle, which you can then add defer to and do your thing. So this is the thing that I'm the most excited about in Livewire. I don't know. I feel like this is the missing link between Alpine and Livewire. Now we have a really comprehensive solution for building apps that, like Taylor was saying, feel exactly the same as the Vue apps that we were building before. So I'm really pumped about it. If you couldn't tell, I'm pumped about this whole project. If you're into Livewire, if you're not into it, go check it out, LaravelLivewire.com. I'm going to be releasing version 2 before Laravel 8 is released. So whenever that happens, and if you want to learn about Livewire, go check out the screencasts. I have a ton of screencasts where we build a full application from scratch. You learn a ton. I have a whole thing on building custom form inputs with Blade components and all that stuff. And I'm going to have a new batch out for Livewire V2. So when it drops, you can check that out. And I'm going to get back to building Surge now that V2 is out. Thank you so much for following along and caring about the work that I care a lot about. I hope it resonates with you. I hope you believe in the project, and I just want to keep pushing this paradigm as far as I can push it. So thank you for supporting me so much. That's it.
Fantastic. Great job. Love it. Just can't wait to build something brand new. It's the kind of thing that just makes me like, I just want to like shut down the conference right now. I'm just going to go start hacking on something. Yeah,
Impulse
we're just turning it
shutdown.
off. Done. Conference is over. All right, man. Thanks a lot. Great
Thanks, man.
job.